All right, looks like we're just about at the top of the hour, so I'm going to go ahead and get things started. First of all, thank you all for joining this month's consulting webinar. This one is going to be titled Auto Create Employee Agreement Templates. My name is Stephen Kreutzfeldt, and I'm a business process consultant here with CDI, and I'm going to be taking you through the webinar today. Today's webinar is a Laserfiche workflow build-along. It's going to be aimed towards individuals who have at least some experience working with workflow and also have some familiarity using Laserfiche templates and metadata as well. So first of all, what is a workflow build-along? In a nutshell, a build-along is going to be an interactive experience designed to guide the viewer through the creation and deployment of a common business process. What that means is the goal of this webinar is to walk you through a specific configuration, the whole process beginning to finish, and if you follow along, you'll have a process that is ready to deploy at the end. If at any point during this presentation you need any help, feel free to post any questions in the chat box at any time. That'll be on the bottom of the little floating window in GoToWebinar. Looks like this. And at the end, I'll go ahead and set aside a little bit of time to answer as many questions as I can. In order to make sure you get the most out of this webinar, make sure first and foremost you're taking good notes. Personally, I'm more of a visual learner. I really like to take screenshots, and so I would encourage each one of you to also be taking screenshots of the different steps of the process as we go, and of course take good notes that you'll be able to refer to later. Also, don't be afraid to ask questions. That's what the chat box is for. We want to make sure that each one of you is getting the most out of this as possible. And chances are, if you have a question come up, something you may not understand or I didn't do a very good job of explaining, you're not the only one. Someone else probably is hoping to ask the same question. Also, please complete the survey afterwards. The survey is in place to make sure that we are doing the best we can and including everything in the webinar that needs to be there, and we're always open to any advice you have on improving the process. And also just a note, this will be recorded, so you'll be able to go back, revisit, rewatch, and do the build along later on your own time. And individual sessions are available with our consulting team for anyone who wants to request that. So today's process is going to be an autofill employee agreement. So what that means is that we're going to be using a process to automatically fill in a Word doc, in this case, an employee agreement, by using workflow. This could also be used for things like purchase orders, it can be used for RFQs, it can be used to create letters if you're sending out mass letters to multiple individuals. But the idea is that we're trying to automate the process of filling out Word docs rather than filling out each individual field and taking up a lot of time and resources and labor from our workforce. The process today is going to first start by using forms to capture new employee data. We're then going to use forms to send that information to Laserfiche, where Laserfiche is going to recognize and capture some of the data that forms sent over through metadata. And then workflow is going to take that new employee information in Laserfiche and use it to update a Word doc that we create. Today's webinar, you're going to need, or for the build along, you're going to need access to the workflow design tool, also Laserfiche client, workflow admin console, Laserfiche forms designer, and of course, Microsoft Word. To help you follow along a little bit, we're going to begin by creating fields within our Word doc. We're going to take that example of an employee agreement, identify which fields we want to update with the metadata that's captured in Laserfiche. We're then going to save that Word doc onto the workflow server so we can easily access it from workflow and use that to automate and automatically fill the different fields. We're then going to build the workflow step by step that's going to automatically update our Word doc automatically, all of those fields we recognize in step one. So with that, let's go ahead and get things started. We'll switch over to Laserfiche. Now, as I mentioned, the first thing that we're going to do is identify which one of our Word docs we want to have automatically filled out by workflow. In today's example, we're going to use a generic employee agreement. Now, an employee agreement is going to have some very specific data that's unique to the person we're onboarding or bringing into the position. We're going to need to know which organization they're going to be a part of, their name, position, start date, who their supervisor is going to be, as well as the salary. So these are some of the fields that are going to remain static for every employee that comes in, but the actual data, the underlying data for each individual is going to change. So the value of today's process is going to be to fill those out without going through and editing every single line. Now, I've done a little bit of work ahead of time to go in and identify which of these fields need to be updated, and I've even gone through and identified a few of them to be updated. But the way I did that, I'll show you through the employee name as well as the start date. First thing we're going to do is just highlight the field that we want to have automatically populated. In this case, I'll start with employee name. Then if you go to the Insert tab on Microsoft Word, and you find an icon that looks like this, I don't know if you can see that very well. We'll go ahead and zoom in on that. That's going to be, you'll also see a label probably of it, of quick parts. But if we drop down the quick parts, we'll see an option for field. So for those of you following along at home, if you want to take a snapshot of this, this would be a good time. So we'll go ahead and select our field, and you should have a drop down here of a couple of different types of categories. And over here, we'll see a lot of different options. The one we're looking for is going to be under the mail merge category, and we're actually looking for merge field. So mail merge category, merge field. From here, we just need to identify what our highlighted field is going to be called. And since this is employee name, I'll keep it simple and just say we're going to call that employee. When we hit OK and commit that, you'll notice that it reformatted and changed to have two little brackets on either side of it. This now means that this field is ready to be merged, and it can be recognized and used to be updated with other data. To go through that one more time, we'll do the same thing with start date here. So we highlight the field we want. We go up to our quick parts, select field, make sure mail merge is the category, select merge field, and name our field name. And I'll just call this one start date. And OK. And that's all there is to it. Now we will have to do that for every single one of the other fields that we want to update, but I went ahead and taken the liberty of adding all those in. So you can see they all have those brackets on either side of them, meaning that each one of these will be recognizable. So once we're done with this, we'll want to go ahead and save that. Make sure we save it someplace that we can easily find it. I'll go ahead and close out. Now mine I have saved right here on my desktop. The next step is going to be, we need to place this document that we filled out someplace where workflow can find it easily. And so we'll do that by opening up the Workflow Administration Console. If you haven't used this before, it looks like a little key and then the workflow cog or gear. So we'll open that up, expand the local host or whatever your server's name is, and we're looking for external objects. So local host, external objects, and then attachments. So if you want to take a picture of this or just follow that path, local host, external objects, attachments, this is where we're going to add our new document. So we'll go ahead and do that by just using the add attachment option here on the right. Navigate to it. Like I said, mine's right here on the desktop. Easy to find. I have it labeled as ee_agreement.doc. We'll just add that right in there. You can give it a description if you like. Otherwise, it's going to keep its name, inherit that, and now we have that saved to the workflow server. So once we have our document filled out, all of our fields recognized, and we've saved it to the workflow server, now we're ready to build our workflow. So if you haven't used the workflow design tool in the past, it's this cog gear with a blue outline, orange circle, and we're going to go ahead and create a new one by clicking the new workflow option. We always want to give it a descriptive name, and I'm just going to call mine EE agreement, Word doc update. Make sure that we're connected. Let's go ahead and bring that in. Now we're ready to go ahead and build. I also recommend always having a detailed description of what your workflow entails. That way, if you're looking for a specific workflow, other people will be able to come in behind you and recognize just by reading what the description is, what it will do. Now the first tool, the first activity we're going to use is retrieve field values. Now the retrieve field values is going to grab the actual information and data from either Laserfiche, or in my example, I'm using Laserfiche forms to bring in the underlying data or metadata. And I've already taken the liberty of creating a metadata template called employee agreement, and that has all of the different fields that I'm going to be updating. And so once I've selected employee agreement as my template, I can go ahead and select all of those and hit OK. Make sure it's starting entry, and we're good. So that's going to make sure that we create tokens for every one of these fields, so we know what actual data we want to populate our Word doc with later. Now the next event or task here is going to be to create entry. By creating an entry, this is actually going to be a document in Laserfiche. It's basically going to act as a frame, that if you think of taking a portrait or a painting that you want to fill out and paint on, you need a place to actually place that or hang that, and that's what the frame is going to be and create inside Laserfiche. So I'm going to go ahead and even call it frame as the activity. Now the entry name is going to be the employee agreement. And if you want to add additional metadata to rename that also, we can certainly do that. Maybe you want to do employee agreement and then followed by the retrieve field value of the employee name that we're bringing in. We can do that also. And the destination can be selected by using these 3 ellipses over here on the right. You can bring it into incoming scans, or in my case, since I have an HR folder, I'm going to go ahead and bring it into HR and then employee files. And then just for the fun of it, let's also go ahead and bring this into my employee named folder as well, so we can place it specifically where we want it to be. Volume, we don't need to worry about right now, and none of these other creation options are pertinent at this moment. So now the next step, step 3, is going to be to actually use the activity that fills out the Word doc with our necessary and collected data. And that's called Update Word Document. I found it quickly by just typing Word in the search box up here. Now we need to do a little configuration here to tell the system what document we want to fill out, with what data, where to put it, and so forth. So we are going to use a server attachment for this step because we're looking for that document that we filled out earlier, which is associated with or saved onto our server. And here we even have a drop-down that's looking in that specific location for those different server attachments. Here's EE agreement right here. And you can also see all of those opened up by clicking the ellipsis and grabbing it that way also. Next, we want to hit New under Modifications. And it defaults to Find and Replace, which would make sense in the sense that if you look at the document that we created, yes, you could look for each one of those individual fields and hypothetically replace each one of those, but that's not how we designed it. What we've done is it's more of a field merge. So you want to select Simple Field Merge from the drop down here and type. And what's great about this is since everything's set up as a simple field merge from our earlier steps, we can import those names found from the document. It's going to prompt us, would you like to use the attached workflow file, this agreement, to discover fields? Yes, we would. And we'll notice that all of those different fields we created earlier are automatically populated. So now all we have to do is say, fill in the Word doc fields that were identified with token selector, retrieved field values from our first step up here, and we want to fill each one of these in and match them with the type of data that's being brought in. So with organization, we want to use the retrieve field value of the organization. Same thing, employee is going to be employee name, position is going to be position, and start date, and supervisor position, and last one is salary. So once we've done all that, we've mapped the two together, and so now we've told it these fields need to be filled in with the retrieve values from up here. Now we also are going to need to make sure that we then attach that document that we filled out to our original frame. So the last step here is going to be attach electronic document. And we'll just drag and drop that right underneath the update Word document. And I'm just going to call this fill frame. Now in this case, the file to attach is not going to be the server attachment because that would look for the empty, not filled Word doc. What we want is the activity that we use to actually fill this out. So if we select activity and then click on the ellipses here, we can see the update Word document result file, and that's what we want to fill out. We want to override the electronic document and not report a warning. That's correct. We'll want to make sure that radio button is selected. And we want to attach the file also to the frame that we created earlier. So frame output entry is where we want to attach the new file to. And best practice is always to also track your tokens. At the end of all of my workflows, I like to have track tokens. What this does is just adds an extra layer of clarity and visibility into the workflow that you'll of course have some visibility in reporting into how a workflow ran and how long it took and what it found. But if you want to track each individual token that was retrieved here and what those values were, you can use track tokens to bring that in. So that's why I always say track all tokens. So retrieve field values, create a document as like a frame, update our Word doc, and then attach that electronic document to our frame and track our tokens. And that's the whole workflow. So we can go ahead and publish this now. And of course, it'll prompt us to explain when we want this to run or how we want this to run. And in this case, I'm going to create a condition that says every time a document's created in a certain location with a specific employee agreement template, that's when I want this to run. So that'll be a condition. Now condition entry type equals document. Well, that's good. So we'll add another condition here. I want to make sure that the path equals incoming scans. I also want to make sure that it has a specific template. So entry template name equals, we'll grab my employee agreement template here. And it's always best practice also to make sure that a workflow is not able to invoke itself into a loop. And so we'll also want to exclude the user. User does not equal workflow user. Now also, we always want to make sure that the most restrictive activity is always at the top, which in this case would be our template name. So we'll go ahead and move that to the top. And also it's best practice that any activity that's going to look for a specific path into Laserfiche is always toward the bottom. So if this all looks good, then we can go ahead and publish this. And now it's ready to go. Now, because of my rules, I could technically go into Laserfiche and just go into my incoming scans, right click and create a new document with the template that I have assigned. And that should kick off my workflow to automatically fill out a Word doc. However, in this case, I'd rather use the form that I built earlier to do the same thing. The only difference with this is I've created a form that has each one of the templates filled out, but it's also using a dynamic field to bring in pre-populated data from an external table so we can fill out some of that information a little bit faster. And then it's going to save that to the location, to incoming scans within Laserfiche and do the same thing. It's just a little bit fancier, trickier way to do it, and it builds out and shows a little bit more of the additional capabilities and functionality that are available within Laserfiche, specifically within this workflow. So we'll want to go to our start processes, and it's aptly named employee agreement. So if we go ahead and hit start with that, it'll show us our form that we built with all of our fields. We'll just go ahead and I'm an Office fan, so you'll see me use a lot of Office names. Employee title of Dwight Schrute is, of course, assistant to the regional manager. So he's being hired as assistant to the regional manager. His supervisor title will be regional manager at Dunder Mifflin. We'll give him a salary, and let's say he's going to start work on Monday. So once we've filled all that out, we can submit that. And we'll give that just a second to run, make sure everything runs correctly. We can also go into our workflow, and if you have any experience with workflow, you'll know that you can go into common searches, and the top one is recent activity within 15 minutes. And so you can actually see the most recent workflows and make sure everything ran correctly by double clicking that. You should see green boxes. If it errors out or has a warning, these boxes will be red or yellow. But in this case, it looks like our workflow triggered and ran just fine, meaning we should see actually two different documents come in. The first one is going to be the original PDF that was created by Forms and saved into incoming scans, and that would be this one. So it should show us just basically a snapshot of the, oh, it looks like it doesn't want to load, but we can see all of our metadata that came in from the form that we submitted. And the way we wrote our workflow is to identify any document coming into incoming scans and then go into HR employee files and then into the specific employee name, which was Dwight Schrute, and then attach that Word doc filled out. So if we open up the employee agreement, Dwight Schrute, looks like it named correctly anyway. We should be able to see our employee agreement with all of our different fields now populated with the specific metadata we brought in. And here we see it. Dunder Mifflin will employ Dwight Schrute in the position of assistant to the regional manager beginning on 5/13/2019. And it looks like all of our other fields populated correctly as well. So I, of course, encourage every one of you to go back and watch this recording, play around, have a couple of practice docs, and then also think creatively about how in your organization, are there any other documents or scenarios where you find yourself spending hours or have multiple individuals filling out information and data with that manual entry? How can we free up that time and take some of the weight off their shoulders to do more, perhaps more productive, more creative things? So we do have many different resources out there. If you have any questions or want to get more involved and become a more well-rounded user of Laserfiche, I absolutely encourage you to visit answers.laserfiche.com. Chances are, if you have a question or there's a function within either Forms or Laserfiche or workflow or anything else that you have a question about, you're not the first one to have that question. Somebody else has probably had it, and there's a really good chance they've already posted it to Answers and someone else has answered that. There are thousands of different questions, thousands of different answers, and it's a tremendous resource for those who are just learning, and then also for those who are more advanced and looking to become more well-rounded. Also, we have the Solutions Exchange as well. Certainly give that a visit, as well as the Cities Digital, peakportals.com documents. And also, if you enjoyed this, or even if you didn't enjoy this, please join us for next month's webinar, which is Make Searching Easy and Get Mileage Out of Your Public Portal. In that build along, we're going to walk through setting up 3 of the most common search types within WebLink. And also, please take a moment to fill out the survey. Like I said, that really helps us ensure that we're giving the most and we're getting the most out of each one of these webinars that we do. And also, it will automatically register you to win an awesome free t-shirt. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer any of those. Just post them in the chat. Okay, it looks like we did have a question come in. Yeah, so there are, of course, going to be a couple of differences between 10.2, and I think this is actually 10.4 that I'm running right now, and 10.0. We can certainly look into those and take that offline, but chances are if you're not seeing it, it probably is from a newer release. All right, can this workflow process also support updating a Word doc with a table if the metadata has fields grouped together? Great question, Sandra, and the answer is yes. The only difference is rather than doing a field merge within Word, you would need to do a table merge. And then similarly, within the Word doc, you would recognize that as a table and it would be able to fill those out. But the answer is absolutely. I've actually personally built a couple of workflows that have taken things like invoices and also purchase orders, where you have a list of different purchases you want that will be gathered in forms and then sent to the Word doc, and then use that table merge to automatically populate each one of those table items, however many you have, whether it's 1 or 50. Good question. All right, looks like there's no more questions. So thanks again, everyone. We really appreciate your time and appreciate you joining. And like I said, please feel free to go and download the video, view it. Actually, don't even need to download it. Sorry, that will be posted on YouTube. So go and please visit the video. Go ahead and hit like, follow, all those other things. And thank you very much.